Hello and welcome back to episode 5 of our Build Along series, where we are going to make a complete game from start to finish with no steps skipped. And when I say we, I mean we. I mean you and I together are going to build this game. So what game is that? Well, if you haven't seen the previous episodes, like I mentioned, this is episode 5. Be sure to start at the beginning and I'll talk about the game concept in depth. I'll go over each level, starting with the tutorial level. We've done 2 levels prior to this, and then this is a level 3 of our maze game, which we've now arrived on a title for. So it'll be called the Keeper's Lair, or at least my version will be. Your version can be whatever you want it to be. That's the beauty of this concept is here we are building this game together, you and I, but you could be going out on your own and developing your own game very similar to this, take that concept and run with it. And there's so much more you can do with this. I'm just doing the bare minimum, right? Because I want to try to get the content created and ready for you as quickly as I can. But there's so much more. Like I was thinking about if you added an inventory system, that alone would be huge because then you could pick up, different abilities, or you could pick up different objects and carry them around from level to level, and that could be useful. Um, any number of different things that you could play around with this concept. So while you and I are going to build this version of the game, I do hope that I'll see other versions of this game by you later on, much more fleshed out, much more detailed. Like I said, I'm just skimming the surface of what's possible here. But with all that said, let's dive into it. So this is the level that I've created for level 3. Let me just get that little widget out of the way there. And I'm just going to get the bird's eye view for anybody that's really just trying to follow along and build precisely what I'm building. Feel free to do that as well. I don't have any pride of ownership when it comes to the design of this particular game. So if you want to, do the exact same maze design, feel free, but you don't have to. You can, wing it or do your own thing. It's up to you. But let's dive in. There's a lot to cover in this one. This one might be a little bit of a longer episode because I've gone into a lot of detail for this one. As the levels increase, we would expect the level of difficulty to increase and for the puzzles to get more challenging and more elaborate and so forth. So I'm trying to do that to a certain extent. I don't know how many more levels I'll really do, just because I think by now you're starting to get the idea. Plus, there's more to it than just building levels, and that's really what I'm trying to get to is not just how to build a level, because I think, with enough time you can figure that sort of thing out. And we're already covering behaviors in the tutorial series. So really what I want to talk about is the process of developing a game, what goes into it. And this is really just the first step. Just you lay out the level designs and you kind of walk through a few concepts, but it goes in layers. And so once we get maybe 1 or 2 more levels done, then we'll talk about things like menus. We'll talk about things like going through and refining some of the designs that we've done up until this point. We'll do a lot of play testing. There's a lot more that goes into it besides just throwing together some levels and calling it done. And that's what I'm really trying to get to is the process of building a game from start to finish so that by the time we're done with this series, we'll know what it takes to build a small game like this. This is really relatively small. If you're looking for something, even bigger, it's going to take that much more effort and time. So, all right, let's dive into it. Like I said, lots to cover here. The first thing are players coming up from the previous level, right? And just like before, we should have a wall here. I should probably put that in there since I didn't do it already. Put a wall here. Make sure that this wall is invisible so that the player can't go through it. So we'll use the hidden behavior. Object name, let's just call it hidden. It's fine. reference that. So collision mode is on because we don't want them to go through their nav mesh block. It doesn't really matter because I say we're not using NPCs, but I got something in store for that a little bit later. We're not going to use like enemies or anything, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But for now, that's good. So now when we play the game, we can see the stairs, but we can't go down the stairs because we don't want them going back into the previous levels. Okay. And then you can see that I'm starting immediately on a zone. And that zone is just a regular zone. It's just a player in zone behavior, but that is logic linked to a set of bricks nearby, which is using the clone entity behavior. So here I'm cloning a brick, which is this brick right here, brick 3, and that's because I'm doing this a number of times in the level. I'm just cloning one at a time, somewhere within a 50 unit range. The clone has a 3-minute lifespan. It does recycle, so it does respawn every so often. I've done 20 seconds in this case. And then don't forget to name the brick something unique so it knows what to spawn. But the reason for that is right away we encounter our first trap slash puzzle, which is fairly, easy to solve. I've got somewhere else in the level, I think it's here, I've got the carry object behavior set up. And the reason for that is because I want to be able to pick up bricks and use them. And so we'll be doing that in a number of places throughout the level. With carry object active in your level, anywhere in your level, and make sure that it's always active so that if you get too far away from whatever's carrying that behavior, it won't deactivate. But with that on, that means that any object that fits the criteria of something that you can pick up and carry will be carryable regardless. So it's a kind of a global, what they call a global behavior. And we'll just quickly look over that. I don't want to get into too much detail because we have covered all these in previous videos, but here you can see that it's got some prompt text for how to interact with the object, the pickup range, and so on and so forth. Really the key to this one is making sure that you set up the pickup weight. So I can pick up anything up to 99 weight or 40 size, so relatively small objects. And if we look at this brick as an example, this brick doesn't have any behaviors. It's just an object that's a physical object. It's not a mobile. It needs to be not a mobile. And it also needs to be affected by gravity. And the other thing is you want to make sure that we're setting up the strength of the object. I think the default is 1. And if you leave it that way, if you throw the object, it'll basically destroy it and then it won't actually do what you want it to do. Make sure you put some health on that object, and then also the weight of the object needs to be below whatever you set the carry object behavior to. So in this case, it's 60. So I can pick up this object, I can throw this object, and I'm intended to throw this object over here to this weight switch. So the weight switch is activated with just 45 weight, so it doesn't take much to set it off. It's going to trigger something. So that something is a little plate that's hidden right here. So that'll close this gap. So with the roof on, the player really can't jump across that, but they can close the gap. So let me show you how that works real quick. Okay, so I'm in my level, and here's the brick. So you can see that when I cursor over it, I can pick up the brick, or I can press the right mouse button to throw the brick. So here I can pick up the brick. I'm just going to throw it. Hopefully I don't overshoot, because usually there's a ceiling here that would stop it from overshooting. So let's see if I can get this right the first time. Nice. Okay, so that opens that little area here. Now that'll let them go through, and naturally they're going to want to, because it's the first thing they're seeing, and that's by design. So they're going to look around in here and get around and notice that there's a door just like before, but it's locked. So this kind of sets up the thing where it's not as simple as that. They can't get out. They've got to do more. So they know they have to explore now the rest of this level. So I'm going to keep looking around here. So let me just press escape because it'll be easier to show you from the level editor. All right, so now they're probably going to start looking around. They could go one way or the other, but if they go this way, they'll find a button. That button is set up just like in the last level with switch count. There's three switches around the level, and this part is actually optional. They don't really need all three switches. They're going to look around for the switches, but it's more of a waste of time than anything. Because if they find all three switches, so there's one, there's two, and there's three, what that's going to do is that's going to open up this wall here. So this is a little secret wall. And so the reason I did this wasn't so much because it, is necessary, like it's an optional thing, but I wanted to explore the idea of adding in secrets, because they're not going to know that that's where it opened. They're going to know that they got all three switches, but so what happened? So they'll have to have come across this open space and realize that it's, newly opened, right? But if they do, then they'll find another switch inside here. Now, in this switch, it is logic linked to this other hidden area, right? So we'll get to that in just a second. But again, they're going to click a switch, but they're not going to know what it does yet, assuming they get to that switch first. Now, they might not. Maybe they didn't go that route. Maybe they went this way, and through here. And if they were to just duck around here to see what's in here, they're not going to know what's, there's nothing here for them to see unless this door is open. So this will look like it's just a dead end. They'll come through here and they'll see a battery. Now, by the time they get down here, they're probably going to have a pretty depleted battery. So that's going to be something they want. But they're going to have to figure out how to open this door. Now that door is opened by this switch. So they would have had to found that secret in order to get in there, and they might not. And if they don't, that's fine. They don't really need it. We'll put batteries, throughout the maze, otherwise, but it's just there to entice them. I don't really have a lot to entice them with other than batteries in this level design, because we're not doing things like an inventory or weapons or any of those other things. So it's less about getting them to try to solve this, and it's more about helping you understand that you can create a series of events that ultimately will lead to a secret. This could be later like an achievement or something that you add, like a Steam achievement. So there's play around with these concepts as you're designing the level. Just wanted to add it in there so that we had the option of kind of like a hidden room secret, something optional. It also opens this door, which is like a hidden door, and that's really just to save them. Like, they just got the battery, good for them. Let's not make them go all the way through, that. Let's just let them out here, and they can they can quickly figure out where they are from this orientation. So that's just like a little quickie escape there. Now, like I said, they could blow past all of that and not be interested at all in that. So if that's the case, they might go this way. And if they go this way, we have another clone object behavior set up right here. In fact, I think, turn the logic links off. We actually have two. So there are two objects in here that are cloning entities. Both of them are bricks. There's brick 1, there's brick 2. Here's the trigger zone. Remember that you do need to trigger a clone entity. So make sure you're triggering it in some way. The player has to come through this direction, so they're just getting it triggered right away. And that'll spawn these two bricks. So this is actually kind of, it looks like a dead end. They come in here, they're going to see a bunch of debris on the ground, right? At this point, they know they can pick up bricks, right? So that's kind of a clue. We've educated them early on, and now that's kind of coming back around. Where they see a lot of debris on the ground. They don't really see anything obvious here, right? But if they're clever, they'll pick up the brick and realize, oh, you know what? I can pass it through this window. Let me show you how that looks. Put my little dude right there. save it. I always like to save before I click play just in case. So here we're in that little spot where the zone's like directly in front of me. And when I walk through, I don't hear anything. Obviously, I took that sound away. But there's the bricks. So they've both been spawned. And I know that I can pick it up, right? And throw it or pick it up with the left mouse and carry it around. And I realize, hey, you know what? This actually fits nicely right in here. Get it up high enough. Of course, I'm going to botch this when I try to demonstrate why not. There we go. And we pass it through that window, drop it. And that opens one of the secrets, right? So now we see that there's a gap here. And again, we're not going to be able to jump it. If there's a ceiling here, there's no way we're going to be able to jump it and not land in that pit and die. But we know from earlier that we can throw bricks. So we're going to throw the brick. It's going to land and get us a key that we need. That key, of course, is logic linked to the door that we saw earlier. So now we can get out of the first half of this maze, which is really just the vast majority of this maze here, right? So now we're going to make our way all the way through the maze back to the way we came to try to find that door, which, get myself oriented again. There we go. So we'll end up right here. Now for the next part of this, I want to show you how it looks when it's right. When I have the ceiling on, when I have the light. If you don't remember, this is how we're going to make the scene pitch black. I'll just turn both of these all the way to black. We can turn off our little editor light. All right, so we're at the door and we have our key. So we're going to go through the door here. And we see some arrows on the ground, which is interesting, right? Something to kind of give the player a little heads up. And as we walk through this hallway, we see the figure kind of turn and leave and we start getting shot at. Now we have some little turnouts that we can dodge the arrow from. But we got hit a couple of times. We're chasing that figure that we saw, but we don't see where he went. He just kind of dodged us. Lots to cover just in that one little thing. So again, here's the door. we already said that's logic linked to the key. Now we have a couple of different effects happening simultaneously here. We have our figure. He's standing in the hallway. He is logic linked to a flag. Okay, and so he is set to patrol to that flag. His whole job, patrol. Okay. And I just made this character, by the way, with the character creator. So here's what my guy looks like. Doesn't really matter what you make him look like. You could use a character from Mixamo or your own character. There's a software called Fuse. You can get it in Steam. Pretty sure it's free. And that plays well with Mixamo as well. So lots of different options. But the first zone here is a trigger zone that activates the character. So the character is not active immediately. Character is not shown at start level. So we want to make that happen as you get close enough to be able to see him in the spotlight. Because like when you're going into the doorway, you can't see all the way down this hallway. The flashlight beam just doesn't extend far enough. But right about here is where you're going to be able to see him. But you're going to have just about enough time to see that arrow coming at you and duck out of the way. That's all by design. That's all just, play testing and figuring out what the right distance is. Another thing that you have to do, and actually I put the ceiling in the worst possible spot, didn't I? So there's also the flashlight. So I'm pretty sure I covered this in a previous video. If I didn't, I apologize. But you want to make sure that there's a flashlight somewhere in the level. It doesn't really matter where you put it as long as it's, somewhere and it's set to always active here. And that's going to be the flashlight behavior that the player starts with. So it's the same as what we've covered in previous videos. The only thing is I had to tweak the flashlight range in this case in order to get this particular mechanic to work. I'm using 525. You might have to change yours depending on the layout and the length and stuff like that. And this is what I mean by when we go through and we look at the previous levels, we need to make sure that the values like this are consistent. So I'll need to go through to the tutorial levels, levels 1 and 2, and make sure that that's consistent and it's not going to break something else. So there's a lot of refinement that happens after you get the initial setup done. But just though that's for right now, that's what I'm doing. That allowed me to be able to see the figure just in time. So like again, took maybe 5, 6, 7 iterations to tweak this just right so that it would look cool, and I'd be able to see the guy walking out, but not really get a good look at him, which is exactly what we want. And we can't chase after him right away because we're getting shot at, so we have to dodge out of the way to get through there. When we start going down this corridor, there's another trigger zone here. That trigger zone is just tied to this wall. I just picked the wall. It doesn't really matter what you hook it to, but that whatever it is going to carry the destroy object behavior, which is going to destroy the keeper. So when he walks around the corner, by the time I hit this trigger zone, I'm destroying him. So even if I got around the corner very quickly, I'm not going to see him, because by the time I get around the corner, I've already destroyed him. He's disappeared. He's gone. He's not even in the level anymore. So yeah, that's kind of just a little trick to make the player think that the character was there for a minute and now mysteriously vanished. The other thing I set up was an arrow trap. Now the arrow trap we covered in a previous video. If you haven't seen that, that's come out recently, so be sure to take a look at that. But I want to show you this. I thought it looked really, really good. So this object here, it says distribution box mount. So remember, I'm only using stock assets from Max. And so I found this little object and I turned it on its side and stuck it in there. This is just like a window brick. And then I've closed the gap here with just a large wall on top. And so then I put a wall behind it. So there's like a little empty space here, and that's really just to hide the back end of the arrow. But now the arrow is just sitting in this little spot waiting to be triggered, and it's triggered by proximity range. So when I come through the hallway, as I get close enough, it triggers the arrow. And the arrow is just flying. So 700 was the range that I settled on. Trap speed, all these things are, things that you can tweak and vary and, make them work for you. You don't have to do repeating. I thought repeating would be more dangerous and fun, so I went with that. And then the reset distance, you really just want it to sail on for a while before it resets and shoots again. That way you have enough time to react to it. But that's the arrow trap behavior that is set up for this. Like I said, there's really not a whole lot. I couldn't come up with anything to do in this little narrow space, but we've, the way game development typically works is there's highs and lows. And so I could do a whole video on this, but basically you want there to be sort of peaks and valleys in the action. So we just came through a peak where we've been shot at, we've maybe been hurt, we got a glimpse of the keeper and we're chasing him. We want there to be now a valley, so that it's not all action all the time. It's too much. You want there to be kind of a give and flow, like a wavelength of action, so that it keeps the player engaged without overdoing it. Your maze might be different. Like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing what others come up with. I'd really love to see some examples. If you've got some levels that you've made based on this concept, I'd love to see them. If you send them over to me, just email me the FPM and I'll load it up and take a look. If you have any ideas for what we can do for the next level, send those ahead. Sooner the better, so that I can incorporate them if I can. But that's it. That is our level 3 of our the Keeper's Lair game that we're making in this case. If you enjoyed the video, if you learned anything new, if you can't wait to see the next one, be sure to click the like button down below. It helps me out. It actually keeps me motivated too. If you're new here, or if you just haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do so. Be sure to check out the previous videos. This is a series that I'm doing here. And then if you'd like a notification for when the next video comes out, I do videos, 2-3 videos a week. So bell icon's your friend there. It'll help you out and let you know when a new video is ready for you to take a look at. But that's it. Thanks so much for watching all the way through, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.